I'm Martha Sutton, and the wife of Floyd Sutton, and this is Phibbs' collection of record proportions, which he started in, really started seriously in 1977, but he actually collected all his life. We're going to start here with his I don't know, childhood favorites, I guess. He got into collecting cannons, and some of the toys was actually his, and some of them not. Of course, with a bunch of grandkids and everything, why the toys got used. This here one actually lights. You put carbide crystals into it, add a little water to it, and it'll light. They say it was a cigarette lighter, but I think by the time you got it torched, you wouldn't need to smoke the cigarette. And they go down in size. This is an old working cannon. The rest of them are just reproductions that don't really work. The steam engines, and this is only a small portion of what he had, but you know, limited space. And most of them are either powered by pellets or by liquid, and don't use gasoline, but liquid fluid. And there are a few electric, but he didn't buy very many electric ones. This one here is done by simply lighting the little wick underneath it and hitting and warming that piece of iron sticking out there. And otherwise it's solar. It's done by heat. And the silver one down there is the same. It's done by heat. The rest of them is done by steam. And they all have little whistles onto it, and that's to let this steam escape so it doesn't blow up the tank. And anything by Norman Rockwell that had a phonograph, a telephone, or whatever in, he would buy, because he liked Norman Rockwell, and he was stuck on the I told him he should have just subscribed to the Saturday Evening Post and had it over with, but anyway. This here is paper records, but we never could find the rest of the machine to be able to play it, but all you did was blow onto it and crank a handle and it played the paper records. The lead soldiers down here, his dad, when he was a kid, had a mold, and he molded lead soldiers for the kids to play with. Of course, nowadays you can't do that. And we still have the mold, and we're still pouring lead soldiers, but we make sure that they don't go to any little kids, you know. The gun and stuff is just things that he's, you know, picked up on the way. The Indian soldiers here is not part of the collection. It's just the black ones that we have the molds for. The little toys down here. This was actually one of Floyd's toys, and the rest of them he's just kind of picked up, and people give him the tiny ones here. He was stuck on HO size trains, and this is just the engines because we didn't have room for all the track, and we didn't have room for all the trains, of course. So, and this is not all of them. This is just a selection of them, and the little things was what he, you know, made the tracks look, built the towns and whatever with. And this was one of Floyd's toys too. These stoves are not complete. They're just things that he'd picked up at the auction, and I actually have one that belonged to my grandmother that is complete, but whichever one of the kids got it didn't want to display it because they didn't want something to happen to it, you know. The carnival things up there are the chalk figures he got when he was a teenager going to the carnival down here at Blue Rapids, the fair, And of course, he put them up and kept them, didn't play with them, so we still have them. We have a kind of an unusual one down there that's a buffalo. Most generally, they always just use the figurines, but these three here are ones that's poured out of plaster. He would make the mold off of one, and then he would paint it, and you know, he did that for a long time. These had calendars onto them. They're pressed cardboard, and the people would take the calendars off and use them for decorations on their walls. This here is a glass negative that came from the Roach studio over here, and when the people that bought the house cleaned out the house, they just hauled all that stuff out to the dump and threw it away. So Floyd went out to the dump and collected anything that had anything to do with rapids or the area. And we've got stack after stacks of negatives that we've had reprinted, and they're up there on that, the prints are up there on that table. Here's probably the smallest little records you'll ever see is in this cabinet here. They're about the size of a quarter. The old catalogs was what he used as references. He was a stickler to make sure that all of his phonographs were displayed properly and the right record onto it and the right horn and the right everything. And so the old catalogs shows most of them, and that's what he used for a reference. That one over there with the hardback is actually Sears and Roebuck used to give them to the local public libraries, and the ladies out in the country could come in and order out of them because they didn't, you know, send them out in the mail like they do now. These are different kinds of instruments. He didn't like music, never played a tune, never sang, but he had this thing for anything that was unusual or took some special knowledge to know how to make it. And they've got names, but I don't know what they are. And those two over there are banjos, know that. These are picture records put out by Vogue in the 40s, 1940s period. And they play, they're not as durable as the black wax ones, but they do play. And they got a different picture on each side. So the value of them now, of the ordinary ones, are around 75 bucks. The special ones go up as much as $200 for one record. So you don't find very many of them. As you can see, he had a thing for concertina accordions. We had 2 or 3 big ones, but the kids took them right away. And so this here is called can't think of it now, roll harmonica. And you're supposed to, it has and maybe the kids took the roll out. No, it has a paper roll in here. And you're supposed to blow and crank at the same time and play a tune. And that's kind of like patting your head and running your stomach. It just doesn't work. This is a selection, just a small selection of his of the harmonicas. And then over here is some of the early musical instruments that the people had in their homes. They're all basically the same, they're just different models. They play on what we refer to as the cob, and it's just a round piece of wood with a bunch of nails. Oh, that's the end of it. It clicks off like that. Then, and I don't know if I know how to. Now, I think you have to want to listen to music pretty badly if you do. But in order to make this one play, he had to put new bellows onto it, which to find the proper weight of bellow material was not easy done because a regular player piano material was too heavy and some of the other was too light. And so by trial and error, I don't know how many yards of bellow material we bought before we got the right one. But anyway, and then he had to put all these little pads on these little metal, because if you didn't have them padded, all you could hear was those metal things clicking along, you know. This one here is basically the same thing. They're called roller organs is what they're called. And it's got paper rolls just like a player piano, only we never play it because the rolls are so brittle and we've only got 3 of them. So we don't use that. And this one here is one of the early versions. Everybody always thought that Edison came out with the first cylinder phonograph, and that's not true. Edison was one of the later ones to get into the player or the cylinder phonograph thing. This is a hose, and this is the only way you can hear this one is through the hose. It has what's called a floater reproducer, and it doesn't make a very good sound. But the records that came with this was all in Spanish, and we thought probably that it was used in a school for Spanish lessons, you know. So these are graffanolas, are put out by Columbia. These are either, we kind of think they might have been cells models because they're so small, but then again, they're only wound up, you know, with a key instead of a big spring. So it could have been one of the first models, you know, that came out. This is the way you adjust the sound. If you want it to be mute, you put this in. We only have 2 of these because they're made of cardboard and they just don't last. This is a little Jim, and it's an Edison, and it just boggles my mind that you'd have a machine that small and all this rigging just to hold the little horn. And it doesn't make it sound any better, but it doesn't sound any better than these, but you know. This is the inside workings of one of them, maybe. We have it open so people can see just how difficult they were to, you know, to figure out. This here is where all the springs are, and this one happens to have triple springs, so it'll play quite a while when you're winding it. This is a governor, which governs the time, I mean how fast the record goes. And this is a 2 minute, 4 minutes. You can put either 4-minute records or 2-minute records onto it. And it's an Edison, so it has what's called a diamond disc, a diamond needle. And unless you lose a little diamond chip out of it, why, you usually don't have to replace the. While these other ones, you got about every 3rd record, you got to put a new needle in. This here is the Cagnet horn. It's an Edison home, Model E, put out in about the 1900s. And with the exception of the wooden horns, the Cagnet horns are the most expensive. And the wooden horns, of course, they were put together kind of like barrels, you know, and if they weren't kept at the proper temperature, then they would pull apart and be useless. But for the best tone, the wooden horns are what you know. Yeah. This is a beautiful cabinet, and it does have a lid to it, but I don't know what my son did with the lid. Anyway, these are reproductions of the catalogs, and Floyd put these out for people to look at because the old ones are much too brittle now to be used. And so we put them on the back, and you hook it up to your machine. You put on a blank cylinder, talk into it, sing into it, whatever, and it makes you a new record. These are just, we've got machines for all these horns, but we didn't drag them all down here. These, of course, are, and I never can think of the name of them. You know what they're called? Stereoptics, that's what they're called. And well, as you see, they got one set up here. What you do is you look through oh, they got it backwards. You can't see the thing if it's backwards. And it's 3D. Everything you look at is 3D. And we have oodles and oodles of two suitcases full of these cards. But we only have 3 of the, go this way. And some of them are World War I pictures, some of them are just scenery, you know, and some of them is a different process that is very expensive. Of course, they're at home. We didn't bring them down here. Every time a company put out a different company put out a machine, they'd put records out to go with it, trying to make people believe that the only records that would play on their machine was their records. And in most cases, that's not true. A 78 record will play on most any of these machines, with the exception of one like this one, which is a standard A, and the disc, maybe I'm not going to get it off of there, is, I'm trying to, has a much bigger hole into it. And the only ones that'll play onto it is with a hole that size. We took 78 and tried to cut the hole so that we could, you know, play it on these machines. It doesn't work because you can't get it exactly, you know, and it sounds terrible. This was Edison's, one of his older records. At first he, you know, put the label, stamped the label right on the record. But they usually only made 1 or 2 records. They didn't make records in production like they do now. And then he got to putting, when he was to make more records quicker, he